well then it's 7 o'clock, let's call the meeting to order. We can do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then the roll call, please.
Commissioner Cadwalder?
Here.
Commissioner Carney?
Here.
Commissioner Zanstra?
Here.
Commissioner Gerard?
Here.
Commissioner Salzweedl?
Here.
Commissioner Hall?
Here.
Chair Hanley?
Here. We're all here. All right, and then looking to approve the agenda.
I'll move for approval of the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Whoever wants to.
Go ahead, Pete. You better walk.
All those in favor of approving the agenda?
Yes.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Okay, that is approved. Moving on to the approval of the minutes from the September 8th meeting.
I can move the motion to do that, but I wasn't here, so. Sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes. I'll second.
All those in favor to approve the minutes?
Yes.
Any opposed? Any abstains? Excellent. Now we'd like to open up the meeting for public comments. Seeing none, we will move on to old business. So the date for the mixed-use workshop and walking tour, do you know more about that?
Mark wanted us to discuss possible dates and get that set up. Andy and I talked a little bit about it, whether or not we want to have a meeting with the public here. Do you want to do a separate meeting where we're doing a walking tour? How would you want to handle these meetings? Possible dates.
I thought we decided that we wanted to have a walking meeting.
Oh, yeah, it's to walk, but what date?
The sooner the better.
Yes.
Within the next few weeks.
But I think we kind of ruled out the public meeting, right? We wanted to do the walking thing. Was that,
Yeah.
does anyone remember? Does it say in here?
So there was some discussion about both,
Okay.
but if you have a walking tour, it has to be an open meeting available for the public to come to it.
Okay.
So we have to include that.
Yeah. And then we will need time to get together a letter to send out to the interested parties to let them know that they're invited to attend that meeting.
How much time will we need?
I would think it would be good to give the public a couple weeks notice.
But we have to do that for either way, right?
Right.
The same notification.
Yeah, I mean, if we do the walking thing, that's gotta be noticed, it can be noticed as a regular special meeting. So what we do, I mean, the notice requirements for that aren't anything particularly onerous. And then we would meet here for some short period of time when the meeting is supposed to start, before then leaving and going on the tour. I think separate from that, we were also talking about having some sort of more informal open house kind of a thing, where we would meet with the affected property owners in this mixed-use area and kind of meet with them one-on-one and talk a little bit about what we're doing. I don't know if we would want, if you guys would want to do those on the same day, on different days. You know, there are good and bad to both, I guess. With regard to the walking tour, obviously the time is going to change in a couple, 3 weeks. And it's going to be getting dark out earlier, so if it's going to be an evening meeting, we'd have to do it sooner. If you guys could do a day meeting or decide to do that, then you could push it back a little bit, although, you know, weather and cold and snow and all that will become a factor here in a month and a half, probably, or less, I don't know. So those are, I mean, the dates, you know, we can figure out, but I think in terms of how, you know, how, if you guys have any thoughts on how the meeting should go, same dates per day, all of that. The notice stuff I'm not particularly concerned about. We don't have to do anything, you know, crazy over the top for a special meeting. You just notice it like you would at any other special meeting. And, I mean, just, I forget what it's not a long required public publishing thing, isn't it?
Right, 18 hours prior.
Yeah, so that part's not a big deal. It's not gonna be a public hearing. It's just a special, workshop type of meeting.
I think Mark's intent though was to get letters out to the affected areas that would be affected with this zoning change, to let them know and give them plenty of time to make arrangements to come and be involved in the whole process.
Okay. For some reason, I remember something where we were talking about how we didn't want to be with everyone when we were walking around in front of buildings, because we didn't want to be like, well, this building's really great, but this one's bad, and then hurt somebody's feelings or offend them in some way. And that we found some way to do that. Does anybody remember? We talked about a way to kind of make that informal. We couldn't all
It was
come, remember?
it was more of an education, because I think a lot of us didn't understand what they meant by fits in it, some don't, what's the...
Yeah, I mean, the ordinance amendment itself has got some, kind of jargon in it, I guess, for lack of a better term. So I think it would be helpful if we can, if it's important, for Mark and for the city to really include everybody, that's fine if we have, I don't think we're gonna have, 90 people working with us or anything. But if we have, half a dozen, 10, 15, whatever people working with us, I think that's okay. We can, I think we can all, be careful enough to not insult anybody with our, with our comments.
No need for me to be there.
But I think in the interest of keeping it open and keeping it, very, very transparent for the affected property owners, and help them learn about what we're doing and why we're doing it, we can certainly do it that way. I don't have any objection to that at all.
What works? Can people meet in mornings, evenings?
Any Saturday or Sunday,
Is that possible? A Saturday?
We bring our kids home.
Yeah, we talked about that, right?
part of the
We could-
area.
Like, is the walking tour thing not true?
Or we could move it to like 5 o'clock. Some people can, some can't.
I don't have a preference, I guess, so whatever
Yeah,
works.
I'm flexible. My
You can do
schedule,
either weekday, weekend, morning or evening.
Anytime
The
after.
only time I can't do it is between November 9th and the 16th of November.
Okay,
My booking agent messed up on a plane flight, so.
I'm good anytime. Saturdays are preferable days.
okay,
During the week, anytime after 5 with me, and then anytime on the weekends.
okay, so it sounds like Saturday, is that fine?
I will confirm that with Mark and then email all of you tomorrow.
I can't do it that next Saturday, right? We're not talking this weekend.
Probably not enough time to be the following Saturday.
Right, there wouldn't be enough time for
Okay.
us to get letters out to the parties that would be.
So it'd be the
affected.
25th.
That's a bad day.
That's a bad day for you.
I mean, it'd be the 25th, probably at the earliest. I mean, we're gonna need to give people a good couple weeks to know what's going on.
November
So that would be
1st,
November 1st.
Probably
right after Halloween.
Yeah, perfect.
Not too early.
We walk off all candy.
Yeah,
I don't think we'd want it much later than the 8th, actually.
right.
Are we talking the time also, or?
9 in the morning, is that 10 o'clock? I mean, I'd rather later if we're talking
The
November
fastest is
1st.
going by that.
Okay. 10?
10 o'clock, so right now we're looking at November 1st, 10 o'clock.
Okay. Let us know. All right, and then moving on to the ordinance, the temporary uses we've been working on.
I noticed that nothing has changed from the last time we met. We'd asked for a few things to be added and a couple things to be changed.
Well, we discussed a few changes last time. I have in my notes here that we're gonna sit tight for now. And if you guys wanted to look at it, think about some things. Yeah, I didn't change anything in the last month with this. We talked about, I added this thing about people to live in a, manufactured home or RV if the house burns down or while a house is under construction. We had some discussion about that at the last meeting. And there are some issues with the city's solicitors and transient merchants ordinance that have to be considered. So I don't know if any of the planning commission has got further thoughts or changes or anything. Otherwise, I can certainly make the couple changes that we talked about at the last meeting and kind of move forward from there. I don't know if
We don't make the changes or have discussion about the peddlers, right? That has to come to the city council.
Yes.
Is that correct?
I will say in section 1, the number 3 that is being proposed, yeah, I feel sorry for people that are in that position. However, do you want to be sitting here when somebody asks to extend it because they can't make it and they have issues and then it gets extended and, where do you shut that kind of thing off? So I'm against that addition. And yes, we have one going on here in town now, so it's awkward.
Yeah, but it's like under construction, they gotta show progress, don't they? Like they're doing something.
Well, what does that mean, Dave?
Stick that means progress.
New nails, C2E.
Yeah.
They moved their RV 4 feet?
So Jim, you're saying you're opposed to the entire number 3?
No, well, yeah,
The entire edition as opposed
the
to
entire
just the
number 3
time period?
edition.
Yeah.
I think it just can put us in a bad position or awkward position.
I looked up a local ordinance on another city, and they really go into specifics, and I think that's what this needs. You need to really set it out and tell them what they can and cannot do regarding everything. It can't be general, like,
As presented, you're saying.
right, it can't say unreasonable detrimental effect. Who's to determine what unreasonable detrimental effect is? This one that I'm looking at has it actually laid out what they can and cannot do in any situation.
Where are you, Kelly?
The C1.
C1, yeah. This one that I'm looking at, section 212, I'm not sure what city it is, but they have anti-nuisance standards, and it's really laid out so where there's no question as to what's allowed and what's not.
What are most communities doing, Andy?
There are some communities that handle these temporary, this all came about because of the fireworks tents. At this point, they have to go through the special land use process to get the fireworks tent or something like that set up on Main Street somewhere. And, some communities have adopted the language that's in front of you. Some communities have still use it as a special land use and do it basically the exact same way that you guys do. The language that's in here now, like the unreasonable detrimental effect and reasonably necessary, and does that adversely impact us? Yeah, it's certainly kind of subjective. And we can clean that up a little bit if you'd like. At the same time, it's sometimes those things are written to be not intentionally vague, but I guess if there's there's always going to be some gray area with some of these things. It depends on what they're selling, how many people are visiting it, where it's located, all those kinds of things. And so based on those factors, what is, what's unreasonably detrimental in one location might not be in a different location. So like I said, I'm certainly open to changing this. If you have some examples there that you thought were helpful, I'd be glad to take a look at them I can certainly incorporate that, some of that in here if that's, if that's what the commission would like.
What would be another way to look at unreasonable being detrimental? How else was it handled in what you found?
Well, for instance, it says here, no use shall emit noise, odor, dust, and smoke that is obnoxious, harmful, or a nuisance to viewing properties or the neighborhood. And it goes on. I mean, it has noxious gases, vibration, vision impairment, fire explosion, or safety hazard. It breaks them down.
But I'm thinking that sort of thing is covered elsewhere.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is. At the same time, it gets more specific into what can cause a nuisance, but there's still some subjectiveness in that statement as far as what's unreasonable or not. I mean, it gives you the examples of odors and vibrations and explosive hazards, which certainly are a possibility with a number of things that people would sell in those stands. But at the same time, when it says shall not unreasonably, affect neighboring properties, it's still okay. Well, what was it unreasonably or adversely impact?
Detrimental.
Yeah, something like. I mean, there's always.
A lot of times these things say unreasonable, detrimental effect, including but not limited to, list them out. So then it's a little more clear, but then you also have the wiggle room that you might need.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like ambiguous better.
You like it the way it's presented?
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to like a little wiggle room as well, because then you have some opportunity. My fear is if we get too specific, then people will look for areas that weren't covered and then kind of highlight those.
Yeah.
Whereas if you do use ambiguous words, unreasonable, I don't know how to define that, quite frankly. But at the same time, that's where a body like this can define what a reasonable is based on the situation. And my fear is, and we see this all the time, and I guess in laws, if we don't use the correct word, then someone's going to say, well, that's not what you said, therefore I do have some leeway here.
Well, I guess I was thinking too, when you're going through the list, unreasonable detrimental effect, when we talked about dogs, we had a problem with dogs.
Right.
We could say that is an unreasonable detrimental effect, not covered by that list. So, I don't know, I like the list sort of, but I like the idea of being broad enough to cover whatever we want it to cover.
And at the same time, I think, James, what you brought up is something unreasonable, for example, and then list a few.
But just make sure to have, but not limited to.
Yeah.
Can we all live with that?
We can.
So Andy, maybe we'll add some of that. Is that possible?
Yes.
Okay.
But just to be clear, we're talking about C only, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think, back to section 1, number 3, I guess, I hear what you're saying, Jim. Yeah, I don't want to extend anyone. But I would think I would also have a very hard time saying, oh, well, you need 3 more weeks, but you have to go through the expense of moving this. I guess my biggest issue with how it's written is the definition of manufactured home. I mean, that's awfully broad, and that does not, I think, meet what I was sort of thinking. If you want to pull your 5th wheel in there, live out of your 5th wheel for a few months, I have no problem with that. But to come in and install a manufactured home is completely different. I mean, those can be permanent structures, so I guess I have concerns about that.
I have in my notes here to change that to an RV.
Okay, recreational.
Yeah,
Mhm.
get rid of manufactured home.
Mhm.
I don't know that we have a definition for RV now, check. But that's certainly, we do have a definition for recreational vehicle, so that's a change that makes sense also because looking at this, when I reviewed the definition for manufactured home, it also says that it's intended for use as a year-round residential dwelling, which is not what this is really encouraging. It's just someplace to live while you fix or build your house, and then you have to get rid of it.
Other thoughts? So we'd like to see the changes, and then we are waiting for the peddler definition change.
Yeah, and that's, I don't know if, also talked with Mark on that and probably get the city attorney's opinion as far as if he thinks that we'll need to change that ordinance, or if we can, adjust this one, how that's going to work. I just don't want to have this conflicting with something else. And if they decide to do that, I guess we can wait, but I'll get these changes back to you next month.
Okay, great. And then, do we have to open a public hearing? Okay, and I just say that, right? I'd like to open the public hearing for all of those in attendance to discuss the ordinance to amend the City of Lowell zoning ordinance pertaining to accessory buildings.
I can close the meeting.
Oh, no, I'm going to close that meeting. I thought we had to discuss it, but, okay. Oh, no, because we made it right last time, and now we're ready to just say, yay, go for it. Excellent. Can we vote on that? Is that how we do it?
I believe that's the,
All right. It looks good to me. Does anyone have a motion?
Motion for it.
Second. All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Any abstains? Motion passes. New accessory buildings. Is there anything to report under the staff report? Do you have anything else? Okay. Commissioner remarks? We'll start with Jim. Have you said anything?
I'm good. Thank you.
Good, Jim. Thank you.
I'm also good, other than to note that O'Reilly's is finally underway.
I thought the same thing.
That's a really good thing. No more extensions.
James, anything?
I'm good.
Yes, thank you. Welcome.
I'm good.
Good? I'm good.
No comments.
All right, perfect. Nothing for me either.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I would appreciate that.
I'll second. I'll second it.
Second. All those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? None. And abstains? Good. Time is 7:23.